So from last slide, here I just added a new thing. So point estimation means you are using a single sample value, for example, sample mean to estimate population mean mu, or using sample variance to estimate population variance. So this is point estimation. Interval estimation means you have some lower limit and upper limit, and then you try to say that the population value or population parameter lie within those upper and lower limit. Common example is that when you listen to the weather updates, they say the lower temperature, for example, will be 30 degrees centigrade, and the high temperature will be suppose 37 degrees centigrade. So they give you lower limit and upper limit. Even if you go to some market for buying something, for example, your laptop bag, and you will find that the price will suppose vary from 1000 rupees, so I don't know exactly, 1000 rupees to suppose 3000 rupees. So that means when you go to market, you visit some shops, and based on the sample information of prices from some of the shops in the whole market, you estimate that the lower price could be 1000 rupees, or maybe high, and up to 3000 rupees. So this is called confidence interval or interval estimation. We are talking about point estimation in this lesson, and we will see interval estimation from next class. So there are two types of approaches. In real life, normally we use confidence interval or interval estimation method. So this is a very simple example. I supposed that we have only few elements in the population. Suppose let the population is 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Only n equals to 5, because I just want to explain to you why and how we do sample if there is a population of size capital N. So we have size of 5. So how many samples will be here? Sampling without replacement. So that means we have to do, n combination small n. So here let small n is equal to 2. So that means we want to select 2 individuals at a time where the population is size 5. So first individual can be 0, 2, first and second element selected, first and third selected, first and fourth element selected, and first and fifth element selected. So that is 0, 2, 0, 4, 0, 6, 0, 8. Then because we are not doing with repetition, it is without repetition or without replacement, then we have 2, 4. I am not adding 2, 0 because 0, 2 is already here, so I cannot add 2, 0. It will be repetition. So here I start from 2, 4, 2, 6, 2, 8. Then I cannot include 4, 0 or 4, 2 because 0, 4 is here, and 2, 4 is here. So I cannot start from 0, 4, 0, and 4, 2. I start from 4, 6. That means you can say forward looping 0, 2, 0, 4, 0, 6, 0, 8, and then 2, 4, 2, 6, 2, 8, and then 4, 6, 4, 8, and last is second last is 6, and last is 8. So this way 5 combination 2 gives 10 samples. Out of these 10 samples, now I try to calculate the sample mean represented by x bar. So 0 plus 2 is divided by 2. So I just say adding these two elements, 0 plus 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. I can write it here, 0 plus 2 divided by 2 is equal to this. Similarly, if I replicate this, now I can say that I can say 0 plus 4 divided by 2 is this, 0 plus 6 divided by 2 is equal to this, and then 0 plus 8 divided by 2 is equal to this. I am adding these two elements from the samples and calculating the average. So sometimes average is 2, sometimes average is 3, 4, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, 5, 6, 7. You see the sample mean is taking different values because we have many samples. So that's why sample mean is changing. So when sample mean is changing, we call it is a random variable. So because it is a random variable, sample mean is a random variable, therefore we can form its probability distribution. So I think I should have, because I was making them, as the sample mean values are changing, so we can say sample mean is a random variable, and something is a random variable, then we can define its probability distribution. So we can define its probability distribution. What is a probability distribution? You remember, if you remember that probability distribution means you have x values corresponding to the respective probabilities. So here we have this situation that sometimes x bar value is 1, sometimes x bar value is 2, sometimes x value is 3. So you see the value of the mean is changing from one value to one sample to other sample. Because of this reason, here we have this table which is showing x bar is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the corresponding frequencies are how many times 1 appeared. Out of these samples, I see only 1 times. How many times 2 appeared in this 10 averages? It is 1 time. So how many times 3 appeared? So I can say 1 here and 1 times here. 2 times sample mean equals to 3 appeared, and so on. So if I should have added here one more row. You know what will be the probability? Can you do the probability? Probability of mean? We just can do like this, spacing. We can use like this, 1 divided by 10. Oops. 1 divided by 10 is 0.1. 2 divided by 10 is 0.1. So not 2, 1 divided by 10, 2 divided by 10, 2 divided by 10, 1 divided by 10, 1 divided by 10, 1 divided by 10. Do you agree? Do you understand this point that I am dividing the frequency, each frequency with the corresponding result value? Each frequency divided by the total number of samples. Here we have total 10 samples. So this is called this table is called a probability distribution because it has the x bar values corresponding to the probabilities. So this is the simple way to explain a probability distribution. But yeah, so I showed you 1, 2, 3, 4 averages, how to calculate the average. From here you can repeat the similar for the rest of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values to find this type of table. So what is the difference between previous definitions of probability distribution and this definition? Now the concept is same. The only difference is that you are now first collecting samples, and then you are finding the average of each sample, that is sample mean x bar, and then you are making a smaller table which is showing what is the values of different x bars and how many times appeared out of total 10. So 1 by 10, 1 by 10, 2 by 10, 2 by 10, 2 by 10. And if you see, there is a symmetry. You see 0.1, 0.1. So if you think of a histogram, 0.1, 0.1 means same height. 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. 0.2, 0.2, 0.2 means they are double of the previous values, and then again 0.1 and 0.1. So again they are low. So it's similar, or not very close, but it is similar to having a bell-shaped curve. But we will not be able to present it because it's not a very well bell-shaped curve. So, but it gives a hint that if you have large number of samples, then your the distribution will show a bell-shaped curve. So this is a theorem we will see. This is one more example with replacement. With replacement means if 0, 2 is appearing here, then 2, 0 is also appearing here. So remember, we have the formula. So it was a formula n power small n. So you can see that in sampling with replacement, you have elements which are repetitions, which are repeating 0, 0, 0, 2. So 0, 0 is a repetition. 0, 2, and you see 2, 0 as well here, 2, 2 as well here. So that means this is called sampling with replacement or with repetition. we in practical level we avoid this type of sampling because it's number one, it's too large, and number two, it's repeating those elements which are already analyzed. So that's the difference between these two. Now, formally, you can understand this is called a sampling distribution or a probability distribution because it is coming through samples. That is why it is called sampling distribution for sample means in place of probability distribution for sample mean. You got me? So this is called the sampling distribution for sample mean. And one important thing that you can see, and I can show you that sampling distribution of the mean, if you visualize it, see here, if you have a small sample, suppose this, see the histogram is so dispersed, peaks here, then some peaks here, some peaks here. It's quite scattered. It's not like a bell-shaped distribution. But if you sample the data, if you get the sample data from this data set, and you take sample of size from suppose small samples, and you plot the sample means, you will see it's a bell shape. Then if you plot sample means, so this is not capital N, it's a small n. By our definition, this is showing a small n. Small n is 5, sample size is 5. Here sample size is 25. And their population may be hundreds of observations here. When you take a large sample size, like 25 sample size, you see it's more and more better normal distribution. Similarly, there are situations. For example, this is the shape of a uniform distribution that we studied 2 weeks ago. If you select sample of size 5 and you calculate averages for those samples of size 5, the distribution becomes a triangular distribution or Cauchy. This is Cauchy distribution or triangular distribution. But if you select a sample size of 30, see that rectangular shape becomes a Cauchy or Bicus exponential distribution. And when sample size is 30, it became normal. Similarly, if you see this one, this image, it is bimodal, not bimodal. It has two peaks. One peak is bigger than the other. Then if you select sample size of 5, you have this shape. And if you select samples of size 30 and calculate the averages, see, it's again normal distribution. So this is a theorem that says that whatever be the shape of the data, for example, unimodal, bimodal, multimodal, or uniform, when you do large sample data collection, every distribution converts to, so this one, see, right skewed data, it becomes mild right skewed. And when you select samples of a large sample size, like 30 and above, you will see again a normal distribution. So what is the theoretical concept? It's explaining to us that whenever we have a large sample size, because we have a small sample size, it is only two sample size here and 10 samples. If you have a large sample size, like you have 25, 30 observations in each sample, then and you plot the histogram of the data, you will see that the sample means have a normal distribution. Like I showed you on Google search, that even the underlying data is bimodal or it's not normal. But when you have large sample, then the sample means follow normal distribution. That is the topic of interest, for example, for us today. We have included what is sampling distribution for mean. So sampling distribution is a probability distribution where you have the values of a statistic along with probability. So if I show you, these are the values of the statistics, mean, sample mean is a statistic corresponding with the probability. So in place of calling it probability distribution for X bar, we call it sampling distribution for X bar. That's the only wording. Because in advanced subjects, you will study sampling distribution. You will not call it probability distribution. So assume it's sampling. Yeah, we have covered the important thing, that suppose you have 10 samples, and from those 10 samples, you take the average, expected value of X bar means you take the average of all the sample means. The left hand side of this equation is called, you take the mean of all the sample means. What that mean? For example, if I go back, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4, add them, 3, 6, 10, 13, 17, 22, 27, 20, 33, 40. So if I add these means, Answer is 40. 40 divided by 10 is equal to 4. Okay. And even if I sum here 0 plus 2, 2 plus 4, 6, 6 plus 6, 18, sorry, 12, 12 plus 8, 20. 20 divided by 5 is also 4. So you see that if I take the mean of these averages, mean of sample means, or if I take the mean of these population values, which will call mu, and here it will call expected X bar. See, the theorem says they are equal. So when you have a sufficient sample size or even a small sample size, this is always true. This is called that sample mean X bar is an unbiased estimator because it is called equal to. Equal to means they are equal, unbiased. So sample mean X bar is an unbiased estimator of population mean mu. So this is a wording. Sample mean is that of being an unbiased estimator of population mean mu. But what about variance? I did not explain you the variance distribution, so I will do this in the next class. We are just focusing only on about the mean sampling distribution for sample mean X bar. The mean of this, we showed that mean of X bar is equal to mu, like 4 equals to 4. And how to calculate standard error, we will see in the next session 6. Then we will do confidence intervals. So these are the theorems. Normally we cover them in practical, that if you are doing sampling with replacement, then expectation of X bar equals mu, and variance of X bar. What is this variance of X bar? You have 10 samples here. You have 10 observation. You know how to feed these values in calculator, and from calculator, you can calculate the mean and standard deviation directly from your calculator without using manual calculations. If you know this, you can directly do this calculation from your calculator. So variance of X bar means you calculate the variance of all the 10 averages when it is without replacement, sampling without replacement, and when it is with replacement, then this. And if you are doing without replacement, then you have to multiply by some factor that is called finite population correction factor. Here it is FPCF, finite population correction factor. So we will do this in the practical lab session. Okay, so my copy paste was not correct. So I have explained this in the slide, which should be in the above slides. So yeah. Okay, final. So what we have studied is the contains most of the information. The thing that I said that the mean, come back. What I said that, or this one is better, that if you have underlying distribution which is not normal, but you take sample sizes of large sample sizes, then your distribution will be normal. This is called central limit theorem, CLT. That's very simple because you understand the concept, underlying concept, so you can see this. When sampling is done from a population and the population mean is mu and standard deviation is sigma, the sampling distribution of X bar will tend to be a normal distribution with mean mu, expectation X bar is equal to mu, and standard deviation X bar is equal to sigma over under root n. This thing sigma over under root n is also called standard error. So we sometimes call it standard deviation of X bar, or sometimes we call it standard error for our convenience. If the population from which the sample is drawn is symmetrically distributed and even greater than or even less than, there will be no problem. There will be similar results. But when the population is very away from normal, like you see, this is not a normal distribution, then if you select sample size of 30 or 25, you will see a bell-shaped distribution. This is very good example where you find that there is rectangular distribution or by model type distribution, skewed distribution. Even then, you are getting a bell-shaped distribution. So this is very this is the spine, like normal distribution is the core of statistics. Similarly, the central limit theorem is the core for most of the statistical analysis. And I can say, I think all the lessons after this and today are dependent on central limit theorem. So I gave you example, small, this capital M is representing the mean value. M stands for mean, or X bar also stands for mean. Whatever be the shape, they converges to normal distribution. So first line is showing that the data for X observations. X observations may be student marks, but if you take the averages, for example, average for every 2 students, then you will see it's getting closer and closer and closer to bell shape. Yeah, this is the core of statistics, statistical inference. What we are studying, we are going to start the statistical inference. Inference means making decision, and for that purpose, central limit theorem is the most important theorem out of it. Now, one thing I should have written somewhere. Let me stop it first. Yes. So you can say that sampling distribution of X bar follows normal distribution, because we saw the histograms and different shapes. With variant mu is the mean, like here expectation is equal to mean, and the variance is equal to sigma square over n. So here I was showing you a standard deviation, but you can say variance is equal to square of this is equal to sigma square over n. This is the core for the statistics that we will study, because statistics have many different branches. One of the branches we are studying in this semester. But if you suppose your sample size is large, but sigma square represent the whole population variance. For example, whole population, the salaries, fluctuation or variations in the 220 million of population of Pakistan. You cannot estimate unless you enumerate, you go to every individual and find the salary from each individual person. If you don't know sigma square, then you can replace sigma square by the estimated value, which is S square. S square is the sample variance, and square root of the sample variance is called sample standard deviation. In place of sigma, here you see we are using S. S is replacing, where S, small s is unbiased estimator of population's standard deviation sigma, provided that sample size is large. If your sample size is large, like 30 and more than 30, you can do this. And if you remember what is Z, this is the same Z that we studied, standard normal distribution. So we can use central limit theorem if sigma is unknown and replace by sample standard deviation, provided that n is large. So this is important. If it is smaller, then it's a problem. So if sample size is small, then we have another distribution that is near to normal distribution, but it is a bit different from normal distribution. That is called T distribution. I think it's developed in I don't know, 18th century or 19th century, exactly, maybe more than 100 years old distribution. What is this? You see the formula for this is same like this: x bar minus mu divided by s over under root n. Here as well, x bar minus mu divided by s over under root n. But now we're calling it T. Why? Because sigma is not given and sample size n is lesser than 30. If sample size less than 30, sigma unknown, then we call it T distribution. It's very useful, but it was developed by students of a university. So, and at that time, I think 1860s, 70s, it was not allowed to use the name of the scientist or name of the student for a research. Therefore, they called it students T distribution in place of Fisher's T distribution. So that is, and you see, T distribution have bigger tails, like more tailed. The T distribution will end very far comparative to normal distribution. So T distribution have large tails comparative to normal, or they are called fatty tails comparative to the standard normal distribution or